Number 1.
This is a story that happened to me in college. During my final year in college, I was living in a 2-bedroom on-campus apartment with 4 other girls. My actual roommate, Christine, is a sweetheart, and we're still like sisters even now, after over 10 years of friendship. That was our 3rd year rooming together, and we even signed up for the same summer abroad programs. We like to joke that we've used up all our roommate luck by finding each other, because all of our apartment mates were interesting. The other 2 girls sharing our apartment were Chelsea and Brittany. Chelsea was normal, but Brittany was problematic. She would always bring different guys home every night, which was fine, except for the fact that she was in a relationship with a cop who carried a gun everywhere with him and had serious anger and jealousy issues. Oh, and she'd have sex all over every surface of the apartment. The night this incident happened, there was a St. Patrick's Day party with free concerts happening in the school, so there were loads of people on campus. Brittany and Chelsea have gone off to party, but Christine and I decided to stay at home to binge on Friends reruns, because we were so lame. In the middle of our Friends binge session, we heard someone hammering at our door.
Hey, can you let me in? I need to borrow your phone.
It was a male voice. We immediately assumed it was one of Brittany's guys. Sometimes they would make up stories just to get into our apartment, then refuse to leave until she comes back so they can hook up or get into shouting matches or whatever. "What should we do?" Christine whispered. I knew what she wanted, but she was too nice to say it, so I said it for her. "Let's pretend we're not in and not answer." We were in no mood to entertain a guy for a few hours while he waited for Brittany to come back. The guy banged on our door and asked to borrow our phone several times, but eventually gave up and left. We had fun watching the rest of the episode when our phones buzzed. We both checked our phones, and it was an automatically generated campus-wide alert text. There was a stabbing on campus. It was in our very apartment, and it happened in the unit right above ours. The stabber was an unidentified male, and he was still on the loose. I looked at Christy and asked her, could it be... She looked unsure but went, "Nah, it couldn't. Yeah, there's no way, it can't be." We made sure we barricaded the door to our room before we slept though, in case Brittany brought Mr. Stabby home. I mean, she doesn't have the best taste in men. The next day, we read the school paper to find out more about the incident. Apparently, the guy knocked on the victim's door, asking to borrow her phone. She let him in, and as soon as he was inside her apartment, he grabbed a knife from the kitchen countertop and stabbed her multiple times in the stomach. He was a complete stranger, and he seems that his only motivation is to stab someone. Since the campus was filled with thousands of people during the party, the guy easily slipped into the crowd and disappeared. Our apartment was on the ground floor and right next to the stairs. If someone was to go knocking on every apartment, our apartment was most likely right before the victim's apartment. Christine and I definitely spent a few minutes shouting, "Holy shit, oh my god." Turns out, having a terrible apartment mate may have just saved us. And yes, there was an article about it in the news. It's in the description box below. If you were a fellow lion during that time, you'd remember that it was a month after there was a shooting over a high school basketball game hosted on campus. Fortunately for me, I was graduating in 2 months, so my mum couldn't pull me out of LA and make me move back to Indonesia ASAP. Yes, my mum received the alert too, knew our apartment's layout, and so she also pieced everything together and realized the victim could have been me or Christine.
Number 2.
This happened yesterday. I am driving to my boyfriend Eric's house. It's about a 15-minute drive. I quickly noticed that there is a car tailgating me. There is a Hispanic guy driving a 90s sedan. As I reach Eric's street, The guy is still closely following me. I'm not completely alarmed, but paranoid enough not to stop at Eric's, but to continue on to the end of the street. As I loop back around, the car is gone. Feeling good, I pull into the driveway and get out. As I'm doing this, the same car drives by. He does not slow down, does not look at me, does not acknowledge me in any way. Shrugging it off as a coincidence, I go inside. A few hours later, Eric is in bed and I'm watching TV. There is a large bay window opposite the couch, and you can see through a part in the blinds. I see movement out of the corner of my eye. The floodlight comes on and the dog goes insane. Eric checks but doesn't see anything. We figured it's a deer and head to bed. 2 hours later, around 2 a.m, the dog starts to go ballistic again. I have never heard her go off like this, ever. So Eric takes a bat and the dog and goes out the side door. The side door is level with the ground and opens directly into the kitchen. Eric pops his head out, tells me the backyard is clear, he's checking the front, and makes me lock the screen door even though I was keeping the inside door open. I was standing with my head in the fridge back to the door when I hear him trying to get in. I turn around laughing because he just told me to lock it. And it's not Eric. It's the guy that was following me earlier. He doesn't say anything, just stares at me as he tries to get in again. I screamed bloody murder and Eric and my dog come running around the side of the house. The guy takes off. We called the police, but they couldn't find him. They filed a report, but said there wasn't really anything they could do unless they see him again. I did not even want to think about what would have happened if that screen door wasn't locked. We're staying at my house for the foreseeable future.
Number 3.
Before I start my story, I'm afraid it's necessary that I give a bit of backstory first, so bear with me. I was 18 years old, very pregnant and living in Washington State. My piece of garbage boyfriend, now ex, thank God, was living with one of his many girlfriends while I stayed in the seedy Salvation Army in downtown Olympia. I hated living there and was hunting relentlessly for a job. I finally found one, located deep in Hawks Prairie, and couldn't wait to start my training. However, after filling the necessary paperwork, I soon discovered that I would be scheduled to start the work the following day at 5:30 a.m. Problem was, I didn't have a car and the buses weren't running at that time. I was screwed, but I was determined, so I made the foolish decision to walk there. At 1 a.m, I left the shelter and began my long and strenuous walk to Hawks Prairie. I had foolishly told no one of my night escapade. Looking back, I realized how stupid I really was. 2 hours in, and I had finally reached Lacey. My already sore and blistered feet were screaming, but I trekked on into the night. I finally came across the point in the road where the streets were lined with lights. What the f... I whispered to myself, as I heard a heavy bang up ahead. There were 2 trash cans underneath the flickering street lamp. Maybe it's just an animal or tweakers, I thought to myself. As I walked closer to the trash cans, the banging grew louder. I started to walk, slower, and was a little freaked out at this point, especially when I caught a glimpse of something shining in the light, smacking the sides of the trash cans. It was then I realized what I was hearing. A large man wearing a heavy black trench coat was banging a set of crutches over and over again at the trash cans. He was muttering softly to himself as he continued to strike them. He stopped to flash me a creepy grin and suddenly froze into place, watching me. I gave him a nervous smile back in return while I briskly walked past him. His eyes burning into my backside, I felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. Oh no, I ran. I was so close to pissing myself. I could hear him behind me, He was beating the trash cans even harder now, cackling into the night. I ran until I almost vomited from fatigue. I found myself resting at the nearby hospital in the ladies' bathroom before I started my journey. 6:30 a.m. I was feeling defeated, exhausted, and was on the brink of tears when I finally made it to work. Thankfully, it turns out that my schedule had been rearranged and I would be starting at a later time. I burst into tears and told the secretary last night's ordeal. She hugged me, gave me something to eat, and some money for the bus. I was so thankful and happily climbed aboard when it arrived, sinking into the soft, carpeted seats. The doors of the bus suddenly flung open, and I instantly froze in disbelief. The crazy bastard from last night was awkwardly making his way onto the bus, holding his crutches, staring at me, and I'll never forget those eyes. His eyes were red, not bloodshot, no, they were blood red. He looked like a homeless Satan as he continued to stare at me and slowly make his way into the back of the bus. I got off the bus immediately. My story doesn't end there, however. Several months later, I found myself telling one of my buddies about the ordeal. His eyes were wide with shock.
I know who he is, dude. Do you realize just how lucky you were? That dude is crazy,
he said. Apparently, this crazy man was a dangerous schizophrenic off his meds that was notorious for bludgeoning random people on the street. I had seriously dodged the bullet, and to this day, it still gives me the chills.
Number 4.
I live about 5 minutes away from a 7-Eleven, so whenever I have a few bucks I go there to either get some chicken or junk food. On this particular day, I was heading off to work at around 6 a.m, so it wasn't too dark outside. I arrived there and saw 2 employees around a guy dressed in dirty clothes. I could hear yelling and swearing, so I quickly went inside to get some chicken and a Slurpee. I was inside, talking to one of the cashiers who I was pretty good friends with. Then, the dirty clothes guy came inside and flashed a smile at me. Not a creepy one, just a smile. I smiled back and saw the 2 employees walk back in, looking, well, normal. They didn't look mad or annoyed or anything. I paid for my stuff and walked outside, and on my way to my car, I hear,
"Hey, sweetie, come here,"
or something along those lines. I stop and turn around, and guess who's there? Dirty clothes guy. I smile and say hi, and rush to my car hoping this guy who's either drunk or on drugs will just go away. But no, he comes to my car and taps on the passenger seat window. I turn to him quickly, and he starts jiggling my luckily locked door. I give him the middle finger and pull off, and about 20 minutes later, I'm on the highway heading to my work in Toronto. I open my window since it's about 120 degrees in my car, and I see this car besides mine. It's a Rolls Royce, a very nice car with tinted windows. I'm looking at the car, then all of a sudden the window rolls down. I'm thinking, great, either this guy caught me staring at him and he's mad, or he's gonna try and hit on me while we're both on the frickin' road. And to my surprise, it's Dirty Clothes Guy, driving a Rolls Royce. Wonderful. I instantly put up my window and turn my air on and drive on. I arrive to my work at around 7:30ish and tell my coworker who I'm really close with about the whole thing. He just laughs it off and asks if I want him to pick me up tomorrow. I say no and make jokes about the car and stuff. I really didn't realize how severe this was, like, the guy was legit following me, but I guess that didn't come to mind. I'm starting to pack up at around 3:30 p.m, and we all leave together to the parking lot. And the Rolls Royce is in a parking spot at the parking lot. At this point, I'm freaking out and I tell the story to my other co-workers, and we all get the plate number and write it down. Dirty Clothes Guy gets out of the car, just stands there and smiles at us. The co-worker I'm very close with starts screaming at him, But the guy doesn't seem to care at all and yells back,
"I'll slit all your throats right now."
My co-worker then threatened to call the police, and at that point he hopped in his car and left. We waited at the workplace for another couple of hours, filling a report and providing plate numbers and descriptions, etc. Turns out the car was actually stolen. They found Dirty Clothes Guy in the house belonging to the guy that he stole the Rolls Royce from, with his wife. Turns out he was a registered sex offender and had been in jail twice before for sexual assault. His trial will be in 2 months and I won't be testifying. Just another normal day in this insane city.
Number 5.
A few years ago, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. My wife had left me, so I was alone, heartbroken and depressed. I don't have many friends, so I had nowhere to go. I would just walk around stores for hours, so I wouldn't have to be at home by myself thinking about how shitty my life was. I very nearly committed suicide on more than one occasion, but somehow talked myself out of it. During this time, I happened to come across an adult webcam site that I would hang out on, not only for the obvious reason, but also because you could actually chat with people. Eventually, I started broadcasting myself. If you've never been to one of these sites, think Twitch with nudity. People can view your cam, tip you, and subscribe to be notified when you're online. I didn't have many people in my room at first, but eventually I started getting a few anonymous viewers. And it was kind of exciting that someone was watching me. Before long, I was up to dozens of viewers and some subscribers. I even started getting some tips and making a little money doing something that, let's face it, I was gonna do every evening anyway. It was mostly guys watching me, of course, but although I'm straight, it didn't bother me too much. It gave me people to talk to at least. I would, however, get females, or at least guys saying that they were females, from time to time. Eventually, a girl named Brit started stopping by regularly. She was different than most of the people I'd met on the site because she actually seemed interested in talking to me, and I, of course, enjoy the attention. Whenever she'd stop by, the whole room would become a lot more fun. We started private messaging, and I even made her a moderator for my room. She asked me if I had Kik, which at the time I'd never heard of, but she explained it was a texting app that you don't have to give out your number to use. So we started chatting offline using it. We would talk for hours. I found out she lived halfway across the country, which I actually liked because there would be no pressure to meet in person right away. We sent pictures, and she was very attractive, and at some point we began sexting with one another. Even though I doubted much would ever really come of it, it was great for me because it gave me someone to talk to, and it was really helping me rebuild my shattered self-esteem and confidence. This went on for a few months, and eventually we started talking less and less. I had kind of expected that this wasn't going to go anywhere, so it didn't bother me when she stopped responding altogether. I figured she had found someone real near her and decided that someone she could actually be with was better than a long-distance fling with someone she'd never met in person. It was fine. By this point, I had met a few girls myself, so I wasn't too upset. I did miss chatting with her sometimes because I had really enjoyed talking to her, and she'd been there for me during a pretty dark time. Anyway, I went on with my life and started dating someone, and we ended up going on a trip to the beach together. A couple of days after I got back, I got a message from Brit asking if I was in Florida. What? How would she know I was in Florida? I said no, but had been there last week. She said she was there now, and we must have just missed each other. We talked for a bit. She asked me where I had stayed and told me that she was just down the street from that hotel. When I told her that I'd been there with someone, she got pretty upset and then stopped messaging me again. I was a little confused and more than a little weirded out that she had known where I had been, but I didn't think too much of it. I told myself it must have just been a strange coincidence and forgot about it. Then things took a turn for the worse. A few weeks later, I get another message from Britt late at night after my girlfriend had gone to sleep. "Who is she?" I had no idea how to respond to her. I asked her what she was talking about, and she went on to describe my girlfriend and asked me why I thought I could get away with cheating on her. I was literally floored. Not only had I never been in an actual relationship with Britt, I had never even met her in person. On top of that, she had stopped speaking to me for months, and now suddenly she knew what my girlfriend looked like and was accusing me of cheating on her. I expressed all this to her and then asked her how she knew what my girlfriend looked like, thinking she was Facebook stalking me or something. Her reply made my jaw drop and felt like somebody had just tossed a brick into the pit of my stomach. "Because I could see her in your bed." I immediately closed the blinds and checked the house and made sure the doors and windows were locked. I told her that we had never been in a relationship and that we were most definitely not in one now. I asked her to please leave me alone and not contact me again. She just responded with, "Laugh out loud," and a smiley face. It was at this point that I noticed the light on my webcam was on. She had somehow hacked into my computer and turned my webcam on. I unplugged it and threw it in the closet. Britt then sent me another message. "You're no fun anymore." I reiterated that this was unacceptable. I did not want to talk to her again, and that if she didn't leave me alone, I would contact the police. Then I blocked her from every form of communication I'd ever used with her, and uninstalled Kik. The next day, I had my cable company change my IP address, and haven't heard from her since. But I'm still paranoid that this isn't over.
Hey guys, it's the Grim Reader here. I hope you enjoyed listening through that. If you did, please slap a like, and if you haven't already, why not subscribe to be notified of future uploads? If you have a story you want me to narrate, please send it to my email in the description box. Once again, thanks a lot for listening.